So a couple of things about your hip bridge before we really get into it. For one point of major emphasis is the feet. So a lot of people have mistaken that the task and intent are different. For example, that my task in the hip bridge is to elevate the hips. Well, that makes a lot of sense, but the intent is not to lift the hips up, it's to push the ground. Very similarly, if I were to walk, I don't walk by throwing my leg forward, I pull myself to the ground. I use my feet. So the way we eliminate a lot of that back pain and trouble that a lot of you or your clients are having is first to understand that force comes from the ground up. So we gotta use our feet. So you want your feet actively pushing the ground. As soon as I do that, I think about my feet and I squeeze the glutes to elevate my hips. If I point my toes up, this is actually forces me to use a little bit more of my low back. I know a lot of people talk about more hamstring glutes. Just think about going back to the most basic movements that we do as humans, walking, and then we gotta use our feet. So that's step one. Step two is activating that lat. So a simple way of doing it is to grab a core or power USB and to actively pull the handles apart. As soon as I do that, that creates lat and core tension for me. Now a lot of people ask, can I just grab a band? That's not wrong to do, you could do that, but I'm not getting the vertical load. So the vertical load, as well as pulling out, is contributing to more stability. So just the simple act of holding over my chest and pulling the handles apart, that's my body. If I push to my feet, I actually get zero back discomfort, and I can really feel my glutes and my hamstrings. And I can make this more difficult just by seamlessly bringing the weight more overhead. Now, a lot of people will put the load here, but that's misunderstanding the movement. I'm not loading my hips via putting weight on there. I'm loading my hips via along the lever arm, increasing that stress in that kinetic chain. Basically, again, as I would go through walking, is stressing through that chain. So by placing the weight overhead, I'm stressing the core, the lat, and the glute connection more than I am just placing the load on the glutes. So a very simple way, or I can change my grip. If I go to more snatch grip, I still try to pull handles a little bit apart, so I still pack my shoulders, but this is going to be a little bit more difficult, changing the lever arm. Now what I prefer doing is, once we go overhead, we're going to a little march. So, bridge up. So now I'm introducing that frontal and transverse plane as well. And the reason that's so important is, again, when I walk or I run, I don't just extend my hip forward, I have to resist frontal and transverse plane forces. So in a moment, I'm going to pull out Jessica, and we're going to show you a great way to progress that into your max line. Alright guys, I got the lovely Jessica here to be my anchor point. Now obviously you don't need a beautiful physical therapist necessarily to do this, but she's going to help and she's going to move around a little bit, which is going to show you some cool progressions. So one of the things that we can do in the hip bridge is change my connections, my ability to maintain that lat, oblique, and glute connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the position, and at first you want to just start again in a basic position, pulling the handles apart, pushing to my feet, squeezing the glutes. Once I have that down, I can go ahead and go in the bridge and add a little lateral deviation. When I do that, I'm watching to make sure that my hips don't drop. If I see my hips drop, I'm not able to resist that transverse or rotational movement. So I want to get them tight, push the feet, add a little twist. Now over time, I can go single leg. And when I'm going into that march, what I'm going to do is the same side as the elevated leg to create that cross pattern. So, up, elevate, slide, pull, back down, push the feet, handles are tight, up, over, and back down. So you can add a little bit more band tension, you can play with the load of the Ultimate Sandbag, but we can also change direction. So if Jessica goes a little bit of a 45 for me, I can get more of a diagonal pattern, almost combining elements of a dead bug with a hip bridge. So now the movement will become a little bit different because I have to resist this plane coming up when I'm here, coming over and back down. Pressing my feet, handles have to stay apart, no slack in the bag, and a little bit of an angle and back down. So I'm almost getting a lift and chop with a hip bridge. It's a really great way to activate those chains. You'll find that you get a better result as far as improving strength and mobility that would carry over to a lot of different exercises.